Yes. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let's start by calling this meeting of the East Hampton Village Zoning Board to order. First, we have to approve 3 different sets of minutes. That's March 8th, April 12th, and May 10th. If there are no additions or corrections, everybody, I'd like a motion to accept the minutes as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, we have our determinations. I will read the final paragraph of each written by our village attorney who has just arrived, Linda Riley, after which Ms. Bennett will poll the board. If you want more information, the complete application is in Village Hall. The first one is Ann Maffey and John Eaton, 6 Meadow Way. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Incorporated Village of East Hampton that the application of Ann Maffey and John Eaton for a 14.3-foot variance from 278-3A5C to construct a crawl space under a non-conforming pool house located 5.7 from the southerly side lot line and an exterior stairway to the proposed crawl space beneath the pool house at a proposed setback of approximately 15 feet from the southerly side lot line, where the required setback is 20 feet, as depicted on the survey most recently revised April 24th, 2019, by Kenneth M. Wychuk Land Surveying, PLLC, is hereby granted. Yes.
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 We're going to move the Bell Longo at 95 Davids Lane to the end because we have a few questions. For the next one at 3 Cove Hollow Farm Road and 7 Cove Hollow Farm Road, we start with a SECRA declaration. Resolved that the action proposed by JD3 LLC for a wetlands permit to allow the hand digging and hand cutting of Phragmites and other native species from wetlands and an adjacent area and the replanting of native vegetation in a buffer area will not result in any large and important impacts and therefore will not have a significant impact on the environment. And be it further resolved that the Village Zoning Board of Appeals hereby adopts a negative declaration pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act and Chapter 133 of the Village Code. Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Hillel?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Yes.
Mr. Minardi?
Yes.
And then the resolution. Now therefore be it resolved by the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Incorporated Village of East Hampton that the application of JD3 LLC for a freshwater wetlands permit in accordance with the standards set forth in Section 163-6 of the Village Code to remove Phragmites and other non-native plants from wetlands and adjacent areas by cutting and digging with handheld equipment and to establish a native buffer area adjacent to Georgia Cove, all in strict accordance with the elements of the management plan contained in the revised site plan entitled Phragmites Management Project dated April 30th, 2019 by Land Use Ecological Services is hereby granted.
Ms. Marigold?
Yes.
Mr. Harden?
Yes.
Mr. Hillel?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Yes.
Mr. Minardi?
Yes.
The second SECRA is resolved that the actions proposed by 7 CHF LLC for a wetlands permit to allow the hand digging and hand cutting of Phragmites and other non-native species from wetlands and an adjacent area and the replanting of native vegetation in a buffer area will not result in any large and important impacts and therefore will not have a significant impact on the environment. And be it further resolved that the Village Zoning Board of Appeals hereby adopts a negative declaration pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act and Chapter 133 of the Village Code.
Ms. Marigold?
Yes.
Mr. Harden?
Yes.
Mr. Hillel?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Yes.
Mr. Minardi?
Yes.
And now the second part of that, now therefore be it resolved by the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Incorporated Village of East Hampton that the application of 7 CHF LLC for a freshwater wetlands permit in accordance with the standards set forth in Section 163-6 of the Village Code to remove Phragmites and other non-native plants from wetlands and adjacent areas by cutting and digging with handheld equipment, and to establish a native buffer area adjacent to Georgica Cove, all in strict accordance with all the elements of the management plan contained in the revised site plan entitled Phragmites Management Project, revised February 28, 2019, by Land Use Ecological Services, is hereby granted.
Ms. Marigold?
Yes.
Mr. Harden?
Yes.
Mr. Hillel?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Yes.
Mr. Minardi?
Yes.
The next one is Jeffrey L. Gates and R. Michael Moran, 33 and 37 Ocean Avenue. Now therefore be it resolved by the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Village of East Hampton that the application of Jeffrey L. Gates and R. Michael Moran for an area variance from Section 278-3A1 to reduce the size of tax lot 15 by transferring 26,787 square feet of land area to tax lot 16, resulting in a lot containing 94,387 square feet in area, where 160,000 square feet is the minimum required by zoning, as depicted on a proposed lot line modification map by George Walbridge Surveyors, P.C., most recently revised March 3rd, 2019, is hereby granted.
Ms. Marigold?
Yes.
Mr. Harden?
Yes.
Mr. McGurk?
Yes.
Mr. Hillel?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Yes.
And now we come to Kristen T. and Christopher W. Corwin, 25 Cooper Lane. Now therefore be it resolved by the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Incorporated Village of East Hampton that the application of Kristen T. Corwin and Christopher W. Corwin for a 167 square foot variance from 278-3A9 to legalize 3,267 square feet of coverage, where a prior variance permitted 3,100 square feet of coverage, and 2,951 is the maximum permitted under current regulations, is hereby granted.
Ms. Marigold?
Yes.
Mr. Harden?
Yes.
Mr. McGurk?
Yes.
Mr. Hillel?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Yes.
And then we have Daniel J. Palladino and Amy V. Sherman Palladino, 132 Main Street. Now therefore be it resolved by the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Incorporated Village of East Hampton that the application of Daniel J. Palladino and Amy V. Sherman Palladino for area variances from 278 7C2D2 for alterations of buildings on a lot containing more than one single-family residence and a 19.7-foot variance from 278-3A5B to allow alterations to a, quote, cottage located 3.2 feet from the side lot line where the required setback is 20 feet, all as depicted on the plans and elevations by Jeffrey T. Butler, P.E., P.C., dated December 28, 2018, is hereby granted.
Ms. Marigold?
Yes.
Mr. Harden?
Yes.
Mr. McGurk?
Yes.
Mr. Hillel?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Yes.
And now we need to discuss the Joseph Bell and Peter Longo, 95 Davids Lane. Pam, do I don't have it?
No, this is the most recent, so take one and pass along.
In writing, Linda Riley, in writing the determination, and Billy Hayjack had noticed that there was a discrepancy between the latest survey and the revegetation plan that we thought that we were adopting.
Is anyone here for the applicant?
Oh, right. Andy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Give one to Andy.
Andrew Goldsing for the applicant. I thought that in conversations with Linda Riley, the problem had been, the issue had been resolved. I mean, the silt fence that's on the survey is meant to be a temporary silt fence, which will be taken down once, at some point before the C of O is issued, probably after the planting is done. and that the applicant had committed to use only organic fertilizers in the buffer zone. Is that the two issues?
There is apparently another issue. Your survey shows a 6-foot-high deer fence along the, and so does, for that matter, so does the landscape plan.
I think the issue is this, the landscape plan shows it to be relocated, removed and relocated. The survey just shows it existing and not to be removed. So I think it was just
The deer
clarification.
fence.
The deer fence, that's through the wetlands. But I think it was just clarification that the deer fence is proposed to be relocated to be within the side of the buffer area.
It's, I believe that the planting plan shows it accurately.
Yes, you're correct.
Yeah, and also in a letter from your office, it mentions that it is going to be relocated. But when we relooked at the survey shows it, where it had been.
Well, why
So
don't you
we just
grant
wanna
the
make it-
variance subject to us providing a new survey so we don't delay them?
Okay. And then we would like added no fertilization or irrigation in the buffer area.
Well, there will be irrigation, temporary irrigation during the planting. That's standard.
That's fine, that's standard. Yep, temporary is fine. Yep.
So we can add that into the resolution?
Well, temporary is okay. I mean, we're not granting him, we're not granting him permission for, we're on the condition that fertilization and irrigation won't be maintained in the buffer area.
Well, can we say for one season, or?
Sure. Beyond the first season? Yeah.
Well, I don't know how, I mean, let them establish the plants. I don't know anyone, I mean, the landscaper will, I think we'd prefer to have the plants established before we take out the irrigation. It's not going to be a permanent fixture on the property. I don't know if it's 1 year or 18 months.
It's up to you and Bill Hage, I mean,
I mean,
whatever.
usually it simply says, these determinations say to establish the plantings.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's reasonable, and then it could be decided after the plants are well established.
Right.
No in-ground, irrigation system.
Yeah, okay. So, with those additions, Pam, we can read the,
Well, Linda's writing.
Do you want me to read it now that I've
yes,
written down how you want it amended?
I do.
Okay, so the determination, the full findings and fact are on part of, are on record, but now therefore be it resolved by the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Incorporated Village of East Hampton that the application of Joseph Bell and Peter Longo for a wetlands permit and variances from Chapter 163 freshwater wetlands and Chapter 278 zoning of 43.2 feet, 49.8 feet, 45.7 feet, and 21.6 feet are requested from Section 278-3A8 to construct a residence and decks and patios 106.8 feet from the wetlands, air conditioning condenser units 45.7 feet from the wetlands, and a swimming pool 128.4 feet from wetlands where a 150-foot setback is required. A variance to allow the maintenance of lawn and ornamental vegetation and a 6-foot-high mesh fence as close as 25 feet from the wetlands on the other side of a proposed revegetated buffer area where a 125-foot setback is required for landscaping and a 150-foot setback is required for fencing. A 16-foot variance from Section 278-3A5C to construct a pool house 24 feet from the rear lot line where the required setback is 40 feet. Variances of 428 square feet and 2.2 feet from Sections 278-3D1 and 278-3D6 to convert a garage to an accessory storage building containing 678 square feet of gross floor area and a height of 16.2 feet where the maximum size of an accessory building is 200 250 square feet, and the maximum permitted height is 14 feet. And a 37.9-foot variance from Section 278-3A5C to allow the accessory storage building to remain 2.1 feet from the rear yard lot line and to contain pool equipment and a generator where pool equipment requires a 40-foot setback and a generator requires a 20-foot setback, all as depicted on the survey last revised April 30th, 2019 by George Walbridge Surveyors, PC, are hereby granted on the condition that the revegetation plan and the removal of the brick walkways and the relocation of the fencing and all the other details of the landscape plan by LaGuardia Design Group, most recently revised May 1st, 2019, is implemented and maintained, and on the condition that there is no irrigation or fertilization in the buffer area once the plants are established.
Sounds good.
Ms. Marigold?
Yes.
Mr. Harden?
Yes.
Mr. McGurk?
Yep.
Mr. Hillel?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Yes.
Okay, moving on to the continued hearings. We first have a request for adjournment from Lily Pond Equities, 33 Lily Pond Lane, they want to adjourn it until July 12th, 2019. Do I have a motion to accept that?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then we have one other application withdrawn from the David Andrew Trust Revocable Trust, 27 Windmill Lane. Yes, they've withdrawn the application, totally. So we will go on to 73 Dayton Lane, the John Morgangiello 2012 Family Trust. Is the applicant present?
Hi, John Tarbett for the applicant. Just to briefly recap, we've been here for a few months. Originally, we wanted to try to offset the garage as far back in the corner as we could. There was a consensus on the board that that was not appropriate. You didn't want any variances for the garage. At that time, we were also seeking to put the pool equipment in the garage so we wouldn't have to look at it or hear it. There was a consensus that was okay, but some of the neighbors expressed concern that somehow being in the garage would be louder than outside the garage. So we had an architect and an engineer write letters confirming that, in fact, pool equipment in a garage was quieter than outside a garage. And then last month we were here, and excuse me, there was a request to show everything as it exists, as it proposed now on a survey. So what you have now is a survey showing the garage in the conforming location and the pool equipment in the garage where it would be located. Yes.
Okay, there was also a question whether it was one variance or two to keep it in the garage.
So there's two variances. One is from the rear yard and one is from the side yard. I think the last time I was here, actually Madeline from my office was here, but there was a consensus that it was generally okay in the garage based on the fact that you couldn't hear it in the garage.
We have two letters from one of your neighbors who is here. Would you like to speak?
Sure.
And up to this point,
Could you
yeah,
identify
I'm Joe
yourself?
Kovler, 50 Church Street. My property borders my side property borders the rear of 73 Dayton Lane. Up to this point, you've talked about whether or not this was a detriment to nearby properties by having the equipment in the garage. And we understand that the equipment will probably be quieter because it's totally enclosed in a garage. But when I looked at the drawings this week on Wednesday, another question came up, which was, we still have a partial blank slate, which is the location of the garage. We had talked before about the idea that there was a full blank slate and opportunities to be fully conforming with the blank slate. But there's still a partial slate open on the side where the garage is. And in my letter to you, I suggested two alternatives that would be code compliant and would not require any variances. One would be to move the garage forward 10 feet. And the alternative, bumping the side of the garage out, where it exists now, 10 feet from the back of the garage, would allow for a code-compliant location, 20 feet from the rear and 20 feet from the side. So I'd ask you to consider that a code-compliant decision and allowing either one of those alternatives to be thought through would allow for full compliance on what is still an unanswered and undefined situation with this property. Thank you.
What is the, knock out the back of the garage?
I'm sorry?
What is the part about knocking out the back of the garage?
Not the back of the garage, the side of the garage, is pushing it out, a bump out. So as you would come into a garage, as you walked into the garage on the right side, in the front of the garage, you could have a bump out, 4 feet,
And that would put the pool equipment in
20
the,
feet from the side and 20 feet from the rear.
but would you be able to walk by? I mean, we're not in the
believe you can.
business of
I believe you
being an
can.
architect, but
But I believe you can, and I think the question is there an alternative to the variance request? And in the drawings, it looks like there's still space to walk around the garage. And I
What's the
asked-
differential in square feet of moving it from the sideline? How much?
What's the square footage for that?
In other words, your proposal, what's the incremental setback versus what they propose?
The setback,
In other words, you want to move the pool equipment away from the sidelines, right? the
and from,
back.
yes, from the,
And so what's your proposal, what's the incremental amount of the movement versus what they propose now?
it would be 10 feet, the equipment would be 10 feet further from the back line, which would be 20 feet in total, and it would be 4 feet from the sideline, from the location in the garage where they propose it now, which would make it 20 feet from the side as well, fully compliant.
just,
And if you look at the drawing that I sent to you, you'll see the bump out, meaning that you walk in the garage and there'd be an area where it pushed out like a shed or a dormer type setup. And that would give you a conforming location, and it would give you a code compliant.
yeah, actually, they don't have any lot coverage to bump out. I mean, they'd have to take something else
I
away.
also believe I saw the plan, but I didn't dimension it, because it was a scanned emailed version. You do have to maintain 5 feet of separation between buildings. It's a New York State Fire Code requirement. I'm not sure that achieves a 5-foot, it's not just you have to be able to walk through it or squeeze through it. There has to be 5 feet
Right.
between two buildings. I'm not sure. It might make it, I don't know. I don't know, but.
Thank you. You've done a lot of work. John, do you have a response to,
I can either, there may be another neighbor here, I don't know.
is there somebody else that wants to be heard? No?
So, having done this for a few months now, I think one of the issues is the neighbors are really unhappy with the garage itself, which is now in a conforming location. Billy's right, when we looked at it, not only is it too close to New York State building code, it also adds to the mass of the house. So if you were driving down the street, I mean, at this point, it's so close anyway, but.
It would
getting
look
any-
like one,
It would look like.
one building?
Yeah, and the whole idea originally was to try to get it so there was some spatial differences, and so aesthetically, we were looking.
Historically, the garages in the villages on the corner of lots anyway. They're tucked in the corners, not sitting in the middle of the yard. So,
There's a goal. And, I think the neighbor did start his presentation by
I
saying
actually
that.
don't think you can speak on this one.
oh, yeah. No, that's right.
Sorry.
So I think the
Track
neighbor
that.
started his presentation by saying that he acknowledged that the thing we're here, we actually abandoned any request to put the garage any closer to the property line. The garage is in a conforming location, which I understand they're still opposed to, but he started his presentation by saying he understands that in the garage, you won't be able to hear it. And when you start talking about blank slate, that's not actually in the code anywhere, right? You have the 5 statutory prongs, but the real question is there a benefit versus a detriment? The benefit to us is we don't want to look at the pool equipment or hear it, and the neighbors have acknowledged they won't be able to hear it or see it either. So when you do benefit versus detriment, we know what the benefit is, and we have no detriment.
I agree with Mr. Tarbett, where I don't see any detriment at all. And, you know, when you talk about blank slate and building from new, but everyone's entitled to come before us and ask for variance. It doesn't mean just because it's a blank slate that they can't come here and ask. And I don't see any detriment at all. When you do the balancing act, I don't see how you could say no to the putting it inside, personally. I mean, I'd like to know, someone tell me a detriment to that. You can't see it, you can't hear it.
I agree as well. I
So
think inside a garage is going to be quieter for everyone. Yeah, I think it's going to be better.
We're not debating that anymore. We agree, we agree that it's going to be quieter. And I understand that you want to weigh the detriment versus the effects of it. I'm suggesting that there's alternatives. And one of the things that should be considered is whether or not there's still an alternative conforming location. And I believe the garage, even in the garage, there could be a conforming location. The question would be, is there enough space, whether it's 2 feet, maybe it's a 2 feet bump out that might allow it. But the point is that you need to, I think, consider whether or not we've exhausted all alternatives to this. That's all we're asking.
Craig?
No, if there's no variances, I agree with this.
You agree with?
With what?
With what?
As Mr. Tarbert presented it.
Okay, well, that's 3 people in favor.
I agree.
Okay. All right.
Thank you for
We
your
have
time.
it.
The engineer of the letter that was submitted by TF Engineering, it's May 7th, itemized 3 recommendations as a mitigation measure that they be incorporated into the decision. And it was the acoustic gypsum board, the rubber mat, and no windows or doors.
On that side.
Yes.
We're happy to do that. The whole goal is not here, our pool equipment, so if it benefits the neighbors, it benefits us.
Yeah, that whole sound level thing was, should be.
It's key to us.
It
It's
was
a small
very-
property. We just don't want to see or hear the pool equipment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're moving on to one, oh, sorry. I want to rush through. Do I have a motion to close this hearing?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Now we can move on to One Church Street, Nicholas Caracciola.
Hi, Tom Osborne here on behalf of the applicant. After the last hearing, May 24th, we submitted a somewhat changed project. Part of what we're asking for, AC units to have a variance from Gingerbread Lane. They've been relocated to conforming locations, so that's off the table. We're also looking for Gingerbread Lane variance for the pool equipment. That's now going under the pool house and will not need a variance. Otherwise, with respect to the coverage variance, we've eliminated a big chunk of patio, so now we're down from 315 square feet overage to 155. The porch proposal has not been changed.
Okay, I think everybody was in favor of the porch. You know, when I was over there and I saw the curb cut, now Billy Hayek has written about it also, that I can't imagine backing out onto Gingerbread Lane. And you have a 20-foot curb cut on your survey, which is, the code limits it to 14, but there's no turnaround, and so I understand that the lot is very small and it's been, you know, built on substantially, and you probably need parking for another car. But it seems really foolhardy to the idea of backing up. Because I go to Bridgehampton National Bank, and I can barely ever pull out of that parking area when I'm facing Gingerbread Lane with cars coming around that corner very,
Without
you know,
stopping.
quickly. And then other cars lined up on Gingerbread Lane and then also on Church Street. It's just.
The
I
owner
mean,
was going to go to the highway department to see if that's even acceptable.
Well,
It just says proposed. It's not, I don't think it's a zoning board question, but it is definitely a safety question.
no,
I don't think so.
but, well, you
Only
know,
if it's rejected by the proposal is rejected.
yeah, it should.
So he's going to go through the highway department first.
It will come back to us. I think it just should be
Pointing
brought
it
up.
out, that's all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it's an idea. But
okay. But as far as the porch, we welcome it.
thank you.
That decision in 1 month. Do I have a motion to close this hearing?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Now, the hearing portion, we'll start with 25 Cove Hollow Farm Robot LLC and 25 Cove Hollow Farm Unicorn LLC. I love to say that. Is the applicant present?
I'll read the notice of hearing. I'll read the notice.
Oh,
It's a new notice.
oh,
It's a new notice. Yeah. Application of 25 Cove Hollow Farm Robot LLC and 25 Cove Hollow Farm Unicorn LLC, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 301-12-10-5 for a wetlands permit pursuant to Chapter 163 freshwater wetlands and Chapter 278 zoning to undertake a wetlands restoration by removal of phragmites. A wetlands permit is requested in accordance with Section 163.3 and 163.5 and variances pursuant to Section 278.3A8 to remove phragmites by hand cutting and hand digging and revegetating with native plantings. The subject property is 116,247 square feet in area and is located at 25 Cove Hollow Farm Road, is in Residence District R160 and fronts on Georgia Pond. This project is classified as a Type 2 action in accordance with SEQA.
Yes, Jim Walker from InterScience. The attorneys are also here, but I'm going to handle the public hearing. We got a review document emailed to our office on Monday, June 3rd, and we have complied with all the directives from the village planner. I spoke to Billy before the meeting started. I believe we've addressed all the concerns. So if the board wants me to stop at any point, I will be glad to stop. Basically, it's a common reed management project. We're going to hand dig it, same as we did at Robert Niederlander and have done repeatedly at various locations on the South Fork of Long Island. We submitted an air photo that shows the limits of common reed. The limits of common reed are a little different in this area because we have trees. We have some sassafras trees and a single quaking aspen tree that Mr. Hayjack asked us to maintain, and we are going to. Underneath the trees, the common reed is very sparse and doesn't grow well. However, we're going to do common reed management in conjunction with removal of other non-native invasive plants at the top of the bank as well, and that's why we show on the air photo management program goes right up to the top of the bank and then in a few feet, and that is to remove mile-a-minute weed. Mile-a-minute weed's even worse. It's an annual, and even at this point in the season, if we went in there and we pulled it all out, it would persist for one more year because it drops seeds, and they drop early, and they have the ability to even climb the trees and choke out the trees. So the mile-a-minute weed is shown in photos that I gave the board. It's more or less at the top of the bank. And the mile-a-minute weed is best handled by pulling early in the season, and then you have to do it one more year. And then the mile-a-minute weed is annual, and it goes away. The common reed, what we're going to do is dig it, pull it out of there, and put it in a wheelbarrow, take the wheelbarrow up to the truck, and then it goes to the landfill. And then we're going to replant the whole thing. And in addition to that, so that the zoning board can grant approval to this, we're going to plant out the rest of the 55-foot wide easement and put bayberry masses at the edge to define the easement so that it doesn't get mowed in the future.
That's good.
And I believe that's probably all of it. We have to, we were told to resolve this before we go back to see the trustees. So if we meet with the board's approval, then I can go to the trustees and get their permit. I have made application to New York State DEC to do the common reed management, and we'll start as soon as the town trustees, the village, and the DEC approval is issued.
Billy, do you have any further questions?
No, I reviewed those resubmitted materials this morning. They did address all my questions and comments, so I think it's a good project, and it's good that they're restoring the scenic easement. I do have some suggestions, recommendations for the board, and that's to mandate that they'd be required to notify the village before and after the start of construction or, removal activities. And because some of the plantings are replacing lawn and a scenic easement, I would suggest that there be some time limitation put on when that work is required to occur. Because if they abandon I don't know if they will, but if they were to abandon the Phragmites project, we'd still want the easement restored.
Right.
So whatever timeline the board thinks is appropriate, a year or something like that, or 90 days from the activities, or 1 year from the date of your decision, whichever it is.
When you say that they abandoned it, if they decide not to do it?
Yeah. They could say, we're not going to remove the Phragmites, and therefore we're not going to put in our,
Right. This was
repair the
a
scenic
two-part
easement.
application. One was for that stairway and
I know
everything, and the
that.
other was to revegetate the scenic easement and the Phragmites.
I think I had 90 days from the start of the implementation of the project, or you could just say 1 year from the date of, as a condition of your approval, which, I don't know, whatever Linda would think is appropriate. Either or, I think is okay.
And also, I suppose you only do it a certain time of the year, you don't do it, but.
Correct, yeah.
Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this? No? Any questions from the board?
Jim, do you have any personal feeling on which is easier for you?
Yeah, we do common reed management starting in January, when the water's low in the pond and it's easy to cut the material. And then we dig it out and we plant in late spring. That's
A year after that.
Sounds reasonable.
the year is fine.
Okay, we have a issue that Pam Bennett has just raised, and it's a jurisdictional issue, which is that the mailing wasn't done to the neighbors within,
Yeah.
with 15 days ahead of time?
And it's only 14. If someone wants to double check it was sent on May 30th. Right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 is today.
Is that right?
When did it go out?
The 30th of May.
15?
We had an application on Egypt Lane that we
Yep.
bumped for the same exact number of days.
Oh, Linda? what's
It's
your
it's a jurisdictional issue, unfortunately. There's lots of case law that says the board doesn't have jurisdiction if the required notice isn't out. So,
So do we adjourn it to next month?
yeah, adjourn it to next month.
Next month, okay.
Hi, may I just speak for a second? Matt
Mhm.
Chapman, Ackman Partners for the applicant. Would it be possible, it will be renoticed as required, of course. Would it be possible to ask Linda, based upon this hearing, to prepare a suggested resolution, since it seems like all of the questions have been resolved, and that way the applicant doesn't lose a month with respect to the project going forward? If that would be possible, you would have a hearing at the next meeting. Jim could stand here and see if any additional questions have arisen. If not, then we wouldn't lose another month. Would that be possible?
Anything's possible. I take direction from the board. What they want me to do is what I do.
Mr. Walker, they don't start the process until January anyway.
Yeah.
But we still have to go to the trustees
Have
and
to
the
go to the
DEC. It's an ongoing,
Yeah. So
They're waiting for our decision so that they
Well,
can
the
go to the
trustees are
next
waiting
one.
for
we really, I'll talk to the board about when I'll have a decision ready. I mean, we really don't have an outcome, as you know, until we vote on a.
So I understand procedurally. I was just thinking, given that there didn't seem to be that much additional colloquy other than Billy acknowledging that Jim had answered his questions, that's why I was suggesting that.
Okay, they heard
No.
you. They heard you. What?
There's nothing we can do, is there?
Pardon me?
I mean, we can't approve it
No, you can't approve it today.
Right, so.
I still want to be, I'm not clear on the easement area, the time period. There were options given to the board on what the time period would be.
We said a year.
Yes, so the easement, the scenic easement shall be restored within 1 year of the date of the determination, something like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll come back and see you next month.
So do I have a motion to adjourn this?
Make a motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Then we have a request from Carol Ann Sellers, 38 Davids Lane, for adjournment until July 12th, 2019. Do I have a motion to accept that?
Make a motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we have Michael A. and Sandra McManus, 17 Fithian Lane. Pam, will you please read the notice?
Application of Michael A. and Sandra McManus, Suffolk Tax Map Number 301356, for variances from Chapter 278 zoning to construct additions to an existing residence. A 3.2-foot variance is requested from Section 278 3A 4A to construct additions 18.8 feet from the side yard lot line, where the required setback is 22 feet. A 332.5 square foot variance is requested from Section 278 3A 13A to construct additions and permit a residence containing 3,862.5 square feet of gross floor area. The maximum gross floor area permitted by zoning is 2,895 square feet. A prior zoning board of appeals determination permitted additions totaling 3,883 square feet of gross floor area. The subject property is 18,950 square feet in area and is located at 17 Fithian Lane in Residence District R20. This project is classified as a Type 2 action in accordance with SEQA.
Good morning, Ms. Chairwoman and members of the board. Richard Whalen here representing the owners and the applicants who are with me today, Michael McManus and Sandra McManus. I also have with me the architect, who's David Sherwood. Michael and Sandra have owned this property since 1993, so they're not newcomers, and as you'll hear from the application, they plan to be here for quite a while longer. I would like to, just at the outset, if I'll have David hand it out, I have just 4 handouts. They're all pictorial things for you. I think it'll help you to understand my presentation. So let's see if we can. Sorry, Ricky. You want me to help you take those? Okay, so what I passed around for you is a photograph of the rear of the house. It might be helpful when I describe where the additions will go. An aerial is just a GIS aerial of the entire vicinity of the property with the applicant's parcel shaded in blue. I gave you a survey, the 2014 survey of the property, which was the original proposal that the zoning board did not like back in 2014. It was a wing on the right left-hand side of the house, parallel to 50th Lane. One reason I gave that to you is because it does show you the existing rear of the house as it is today, which is not clear from the project survey. so you can compare the project survey to what currently exists in the rear of the house. And finally, the 2019 current proposal, that's the survey that you have in your application. That is the February 1, 2019 survey, but I blew it up for you, and I do want to refer to it when I describe the project. The background of the project, there have been, as Billy mentioned in his memo, there have been 3 zoning board applications since 2014 on the property, all of them involving GFA. They have led to a total construction of 190 square foot second-story sitting room. The 2010 and the 2011 applications both involved the sitting room. They had a smaller proposal, then it was enlarged slightly in 2011, and then that room was actually built, and that's 190 square feet on the second floor. The 2014 application has never been acted on. What happened in 2014, and I was not around involved at the time, and neither was David Sherwood, but the applicants proposed an addition on the left-hand side of the house, that as you see it on the 2014 proposal. And the purpose of that application, the purpose of the application today, is to provide a downstairs bedroom. This is a 3-story house. It's an older home. These stairs are very steep. Mrs. McManus's mother, who does visit them from time to time, or at least they would like her to, cannot navigate stairs anymore. And they need a bedroom for her on the ground floor. And then thinking ahead for their own future use of the house, they think eventually they probably should have a bedroom on the ground floor. And there is no ground floor bedroom. So in 2014, they put forth an application which the board didn't like because it was going to increase the mass of the building facing right on 50th Lane. That project was then modified, and essentially what they did and what the board approved was to convert the existing sunroom. Now, the sunroom is an interior space on the east side of the house into a bedroom, and then to put additional, and then the open areas that were displaced by that, basically the sunroom, was converted into the former porch. So they lost all their porch, and more importantly, the sunroom, converting that to a bedroom, shut off all light and air from the east side of the house into the living room. Would have left the living room very dark. There's no plumbing on that side of the house. It would have been more difficult to build things. And then finally, that bedroom would have had no privacy because it would have been adjoined on 2 sides by a living room and the sunroom. Again, that's interior area. So the McManus has never pursued that application, and they rethought everything, and then finally they did engage David Sherwood. And so now the proposal is to put the bedroom in the right front of the house. That's currently the dining room. That provides privacy for that bedroom. There's a foyer to the left. There will be a closet and a bathroom behind it. It's easier to put plumbing there because there's already plumbing associated with the kitchen. And overall, it's a better scenario. It leaves the public spaces within the house, the living room, the dining room, the altered porch, and the sunroom, which all face to the east and southeast. It all leaves them where they can continue to get sun, and you don't have the closed doors of a bedroom. So from the McManus's point of view, it's a much better project. It actually reduces the size of the GFA variance. We're asking for less relief in terms of GFA than we did in 2014. We will need a side yard variance to the east of 3.2 feet for a small portion of the addition adjoining our driveway. That's the west side of the house. And the setback there, the side yard setback is 21 feet. We'll be as close as 18.8 feet. What I'd like to do is just walk you through where the additions are, because I think if I do that, it'll help you to understand it's really a very minor project. So if you want to look at the 2019 current proposal, I just handed around. Again, that survey is in your file, but I'm not sure you have it at this size. Maybe you do. Let me just go from the left to the right, which is from the west to the east, and I'll just use the abbreviations that the surveyor, Barilski, has used there. There's something called Prop Ed, proposed addition, but it says Prop period Ed period. That is a proposed mudroom. Currently, there is an outdoor entry porch in that area. We would be enclosing that. That adds to GFA, and that is within 18.8 feet of the side yard. It is a continuation of the existing westerly side of the house right now. We did get an email, which is in your packet, from the neighbor, Stephanie Clark, who is selling her property, but as of today is still the owner of that property, supporting the application. With regard to the side yard variance, I would note that between these additions, this prop ad and the little entry porch behind it, which are within the setback, between those additions and the neighbor's house are first our own driveway, secondly, a substantial hedge on the common property line, third, the neighbor's driveway, and in fact, directly opposite is actually the neighbor's parking area. So the neighbor's house is really on the westerly side of their lot, has no effect on them, and the email from Stephanie Clark supports that. Just to the south, south of prop ad is prop porch, P-R-O-P period porch. That's just an entry porch. That will replace the existing entry porch that faces towards the driveway. To the east of that is the area called addition. That is where the kitchen, again, what we're doing is the bedroom will go in the right front of the house where there's an existing dining room. That displaces the dining room, as I'll describe in a moment, and requires the kitchen to be pushed out a little bit to the south. So addition is where the kitchen will push out slightly south of the existing line of the house. And finally, the last GFA addition is prop addition, PRP addition. You might want to take a look at that also on the photograph that I gave you. That, which is the bulk of the proposed additional GFA, that addition is entirely under the second floor of the house. So part of the existing open porch right now is actually at the first floor level under a second floor. So effectively, that area is already adding to the mass of the residence anyway. That would be enclosed, and that will primarily be dining room. And then, as you see, we do alter the existing porch, which is the next thing to the east. We would be extending it about 8.5 feet further to the eastward. That is much further set back on the property than the original proposal in 2014. And if you actually drive the road, I only have one photograph of each. If you need to see it, I would give you from my clients. But if anyone hasn't been there, drive down 50th Lane. You have to look over your right-hand shoulder, which I don't advise doing if you're the driver, to actually see the existing porch. So the change that we're making to that porch is really going to be very inconspicuous. We have a low stockade fence in the front of the property. We have a lot of shrubbery, and there's a hill. And in addition, as you drive on 50th Lane, which I remind you is a one-way street, you're actually curving to the left as you go past the house. So you really don't see this. I do want to correct one thing that's in Billy's memo, and I don't know, I might have stated it in our application. There is no roof deck. It's been pointed out to me by my clients and by the architect that the balustrades or railings on the existing porch and on the proposed addition are purely decorative. There is no roof decking involved on the existing house or proposed. So I just want to make that clear. That's the nature of the application. We think that it is, as I said, very inconspicuous from the road. We have a defined purpose for it. It's less relief than was actually sought in terms of GFA in 2014, and it better fits the applicant's needs in terms of the interior layout and use of their home.
Of course, there have been 3 applications for increased GFA. I think the late Bill Fleming came in here and he kept saying one more bite of the apple, and this is one more. And the other plan that we did approve, it was within the footprint, and so this one varies. The one that we rejected was because you were thrusting the house eastward, and in a way, with this porch, you're doing it 9 feet more to the east. And so as you drive by and you do look, you will see the porch extending out, which is what we tried to prevent the last time. Let
me just make a comment.
It was, but this is still adding on to it. I mean, I have no problem with the western side and moving the bedroom to the front. I can see that a bedroom in the back would have been dark and whatever, but why couldn't, if you wanted to increase the porch, head toward the back rather than to the side?
That was considered. To move it back would begin to cut off light to the dining room, which is sort of in the rear center of the house. That's where we are filling in the existing porch under the second floor. So if we extend the porch backwards, we're cutting off part of the light to that dining area, and there's also a retaining wall back there near the swimming pool that would have to be replaced. I really suggest if you haven't already done that, go down 50th Lane.
Yeah.
Look over your shoulder,
I mean, I don't think
you know.
really, personally, I think you're going left, you're going down that hill.
Yeah, no, I know, but
Pretty hard to
this
see.
property, it's under half an acre. It's pretty
It's
overdeveloped.
pretty intense. And also, how many bedrooms are there altogether now with this addition?
I think there are 5 now, and this would be 6.
Well, you know, that's a lot of bedrooms for a small house.
It's a
And-
3-story house.
What?
It's
No,
not a
I
three-story house.
understand that, but when you look at a small lot, and that's a lot of intensity in a very small area, 6 bedrooms, maybe I almost think you have to give up something, give up a bedroom. It's 6 bedrooms, such a small house seems very intensive. It's like the straw that breaks the camel's back.
They're obviously not using this second and third story bedrooms.
So could they get rid of one? I mean,
They're in the
We're
attic.
not going to tear it out of the building, we can convert it to some other activity.
No, I just wouldn't want to see further building, expanding the house.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, we've had so many variances. I realize the last one wasn't acted on, but I think there's such incredible use of this small area with 6 bedrooms, it just bothers me conceptually.
Well, they are going to have to put in a new IA system, which is a plus, because it is in, it's very close to the pond, it's close to the drain that comes down.
Let me
Yes?
just say, if I may, one of the reasons
yes.
my name's Mike McManus, I'm one of the 2 applicants with my child bride, Sandy. One of the reasons that we've gone through this is because we have a lot of respect for the history and the look of the village and the street. And we didn't want to do something that created a lot of mass. And so going through this, and with the help of some of the experts, we do have a house that has a number of bedrooms, there's no question about it, but none of them are on the first floor. And because it is a historical house, it's very steep to get up even to the second floor. The third floor is even steeper still. And so the solution for us, if we're going to have the ability to use this great house that we've had in our family for a good period of time, is to find something to do on the first floor. It's not like we could give up something on the second or third floor to do it, because you just can't get there. At the same time, what we're doing is in the back of the house. It's not on the street. It's not frontage. You'd have to look into the backyard to be able to see this as you do now. So it would be an extension. But the massing that I view around here is a problem because it's on the street. As somebody said, if you go down 50th Lane, you may be able to see it over your right shoulder, but it's in the backyard. It's not from the front. If you went and stood in the front of the house, you wouldn't see what's there now in the back, because it was done carefully to respect the historic nature of the street that we're on and the house that we live in. I just wanted to add that if it's helpful.
Well, I've walked by there many times, and it's going to retain the shape of the porch, which you can see from as a pedestrian, not as a driver on that. And so I have no objection to this. I think it's fine. The expansion is over by the driveway now. They've taken into account what we said before. So I have no objection.
Yeah, I'm in agreement, I think, as well. It is hard to see from the street.
You can see what it's,
In the wintertime, you can see it, but what you're looking at is a very handsome front facade of a house.
Right.
I just passed around just so you could have a pictorial idea of how much actually that porch extends. So you're looking straight on You can see the existing below and the proposed above. But in reality, it's far less conspicuous than that because of the slope of the property, the vegetation in the property, and the fact that the porch is set back towards the rear. So we don't really think the porch is going to be something that's noticeable. And again, you know, as Member Humphreys indicated, if you go down the street and actually take a look at it, it will be very unobtrusive. Regarding Member Hillel's comments, I just, you know, all I can say is, what Michael just said. We have 5 bedrooms, but none of them are on the first floor, so it's not serving the need that we have. We really can't remove a bedroom. And to the extent that there are going to be 6 bedrooms, remember that, as the chairwoman indicated, we are required to now, because we're adding a bedroom, village law requires that we replace our sanitary system with a low nitrogen IAOWS system. And we are in proximity to the Hook Pond Drain, so that's not nothing.
No,
that we upgrade.
that's a real plus.
Big thing.
Larry?
I understand that, and I'm not saying, I'm not negative about it, but I think conceptually just a lot in that one house, that's all.
Okay. We could say, don't come back again for another bite.
I think they're done.
This is the last
I
bite
think
of the
they're
apple.
done.
Right.
This is the last
You
bite of the
finished the apple,
Yes.
right. So,
Where have we heard that before?
right. Okay, well, I think you have it.
All right, thank you.
So, 1 month, Linda. Do I have a motion? to put-
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No, I had asked if anybody wanted. Thank. There's nobody left.
I said there's a deck because the plans say it's a deck.
Oh, okay.
There's a railing and it says deck.
Now we have 32 Middle Lane, LLC. Ms. Bennett?
Suffolk County Tax Map Number 301-4123 for area variances from Chapter 278 zoning to expand and alter a nonconforming residential use. Variances are required from Sections 278 2B1, 278 1B2C, and 278 7C 2D2 to make alterations and construct an 11.5 square foot addition to a pre-existing 1,820 square foot second residential use on a parcel of land where one single-family residence is permitted and where the extension or enlargement of a nonconforming use is prohibited. Variances of 28.5 feet and 24.5 feet are required from Section 278-3A3 and 4 to make alterations to a second residence located 51.5 feet from the front yard lot line and 25.5 feet from the side yard lot line, where the required setbacks are 80 feet and 55 feet respectively. The subject property is 237,074 square feet in area, is located at 32 Middle Lane, and is in Residence District R160. This project is classified as a Type 2 action in accordance with SECRA.
Is the applicant present?
Morning, Andrew Goldstein for the applicant. This is an application at 32 Middle Lane to permit the renovation of the garage, which has a second-floor apartment. The garage is located within the side and front yard setbacks. The building has been in existence for close to 100 years. The presence of the apartment on the second floor renders the property a non-conforming use. So by virtue of the non-conforming location, the non-conforming use, any renovation to this property, to this structure, requires these two area variances. It's essentially a cosmetic renovation, with the exception of the addition of a window on the garage on the first floor, which I don't think is an issue, but the dormer in the bathroom in the apartment on the second floor, which adds 11.5 square feet to the gross floor area of the building. It's not a gross floor area issue as regards the entire property. The renovation is not going to intensify or really change the use in any way. The dormer is really going to add light into the bathroom. The bathroom may itself be a little larger as a result of the dormer. We provided a memorandum which sets forth the basis upon which you may grant the variance. I can go through those criteria if you want. Obviously, this building is not going to change in its character of the neighborhood. It's going to exist as it's existed essentially for the last 100 years. It's not going to add any, it's not going to increase the nonconformity as to the side and front yard setback. It's no detriment to any neighbor. The use will be entirely the same as it's always been, which is an adjunct to the residential use of the property. The benefit can't be achieved by any of the means but a variance because any renovation to the building requires a variance, and we've provided you citations from the board's previous determinations which indicate that fact. There are no environmental issues with regard to this property. It's not environmentally sensitive, and the renovation is not going to create any environmental or physical changes to the property. It's not a substantial variance. The additional gross floor area is a little more than 0.5% of the existing floor area of the building, gross floor area of the building. There's no increase in the nonconformity, and also the nature of the purposes to which the building, there's no change in the purposes to which the building is to be put, which also mitigates against it being deemed to be a substantial variance, aside from the fact that the actual variances are minuscule. And finally, with regard to being a self-created difficulty, it could be deemed to be a self-created difficulty because they bought the property with the code in place, but the nature of the structure in that it requires a variance no matter what you do indicates that it's not a self-created variance. In any need for the variance. In any event, that should not be determinative in this application.
Yeah, in other words, the way it exists now, there are 3 dormers on one side and 2 on the other, and you're adding the third dormer
We're adding a
to the other.
dormer, I guess they're adding a dormer on one side.
Right, so it's just balancing it out.
Well, it's being added because the
It looks
bathroom.
much better. I mean,
The bathroom is dark. I mean, they can't see in the bathroom.
yeah, well, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, on one plan, it says that the kitchen stays, and on another, it says the kitchenette comes out.
I think it's going to stay.
It is a legal pre-existing
I'm
apartment.
just,
I don't think they're going to give up the kitchen.
And the garage is going to stay a garage.
Yes.
I have no issue.
Is there anybody who wishes to speak on this? No? All right, well,
Thank you.
on determination, to have a motion to
Make a
close
motion.
this? And all in favor? Aye. Is there a motion to close the meeting?
Motion.
Second, aye.
Aye.
Okay.